All right. Welcome, guys, to the Family Mastery Show. I'm Jerry Norton. I'm here with my wife, AnnMarie.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. And we're running on some good internet today. Look at that.
Nice.
Yeah.
We had some problems last week.
Sorry about that.
To
We could not get
who-
back on. But in our defense and Puerto Rico's defense, it was like a nationwide thing, wasn't it, with Starlink?
Yeah.
So everybody was down. It wasn't just us. But I think we were like right in the middle of good stuff, too. And then we went.
So we kind of need to throw it out there. We have some other stuff to talk to you guys about today. But if anybody's curious and wants to know more, I guess we'll really find out. Go ahead and ask us any questions that you want about what we were talking about last week. And we can answer some questions.
Yeah, so we're excited to be here with you guys. This call and this live that we do is dedicated specifically for couples who want to be in this journey together. They want to create something amazing, want to be united as a couple, and really want to just create their ideal dream life as a family and as a business. And this is something that AnnMarie and I put a lot of attention into, a lot of focus into. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't get it right, but it's an ongoing effort, and it's a continual effort. But we want to, and we have the desire to, and so it forces us to ask the tough questions. We constantly are reevaluating, like, is this what we want? Is this going the way we want? And sometimes we have some conflict around that, which is what we want to talk about on this call to start with, and then we'll get to some Q&A.
True, but if you guys are here and you want to introduce yourselves, put it on the chat where you're from and just a little bit about you, background, how long you've been married, how many kids you have. We love the interaction with everybody for sure. And yeah, we're excited about the topic today. Maybe a lot of other people aren't excited, but we want to talk about what we affectionately call disagreeing appropriately.
Yeah, how to get what you want. Oftentimes there's things that you want in the relationship. There's things that you're not getting in the relationship. It's often very difficult to ask for those things. Sometimes we use losing strategies to try to get what we want, which is very normal, very human thing to do.
We do them all the time.
Yeah.
And it's part of the reason for this call, and kind of like the whole outline for this show was just the synergy that we try to use with business and family, and a system that we can create, like talking to you guys once a week, to help us remember about the higher level things. So we in no way are doing all these things perfectly, but doing something that builds our business and gives back to community, having conversation about these really valuable things. It triggers us. It brings us back to what is important. And as we're preparing things, reminds us of just our highest goals, our highest selves. And so that's what we're excited to share with you guys today.
And we're going to share a few things, and we're basing these off of this book here.
This is our favorite, guys. Look at how worn out this thing, dog-eared. Yeah, we're like, wait.
Yeah, this thing is beat to death because we have gone through it. It's tattered, and there's underlining the notes. And it's called the New Rules of Marriage. The author is Terrence Real. This is the book if you guys want to get this. Mm-hmm. Life-changing. We've based a lot of our life around what's taught in this book. And it's something that, again, we have to go back to often because we get it wrong, and we're trying to get it right.
That's human.
And there's a section in this book, a big part of what he talks about is, how to get what you want. And so we're gonna reverse this a bit.
Yeah, that's good. I think that we can see both, so we don't shut you guys out like we did.
How to get what you want, and really he talks about in the book how to transition from using losing strategies to using winning strategies. And there's a whole section on all the losing strategies we do. Highly recommend you learn those because you're doing one or all of them.
Yeah. 5. He talks about 5 in the book, but we also love Jennifer Finlayson Fife. Yeah. She's our favorite marriage coach. If you ever want to look her up. She upped it to 10.
Losing strategies? Yeah, she keeps coming up with more losing strategies. But really there's a way to do it the right way, and the right way is how you get what you want in the relationship. And there's a way to do that. And in the book, he breaks it down.
It's also, and anything that we talk about here, it's why we love the synergy, because we also love business. And so any of these winning strategies that work in your relationship cool thing is they work when you apply them to your business also.
Yeah, definitely.
What a sweet comment.
Yeah, thank you. This is great, Hans Anderson. So what they are, we're going to go through each one of these. I'm just going to outline them real quickly. Shifting from complaint to request is winning strategy number 1. Winning strategy number 2 is speaking out of love and savvy. Winning strategy number 3 is responding with generosity. Number 4 is empowering each other, and then cherishing. So
such a sweet word.
I love that word. I can't wait to talk about that part.
It's a fun word.
Yeah.
Sounds really cheesy, but it really is fun.
So let's talk about the first winning strategy. That's called shifting from complaint to request. And this is really a complete change in focus when you're approaching your spouse about something that you want. It changes from what they're not doing or what they're doing wrong and how in the future it could be right, or how you want it to be right now or in the future. So it's a shift in focus from what's going wrong to what's going right. It's shifting from, negative and past. So you did this or that was hurtful in the past, to positive future. This is what I'd like or what I want in the future. So it's a real mindset shift to go from complaining to requesting. And the one thing he says often is like, don't criticize, ask. Just ask for the things that you want.
But we don't like to ask.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
It's vulnerable to ask.
It's very vulnerable. I stink at asking. I need a lot of practice.
It's hard to ask. Yeah. Because you might not get it. Right. And that's the hard part.
And then you have to face disappointment and the question of who are you going to be in the face of disappointment. So it may seem like, oh, of course, I'll just ask. But it's not as intrinsic because of the vulnerability that we inherently deep down know about. So
yeah. The second one, the winning strategy.
We've got some good questions, guys.
Keep the questions coming.
Yeah,
is speaking out of love and savvy. And AnnMarie, maybe talk on this a little bit, but it's like thinking about why you're showing up and the real thing that matters the most.
Yeah, for sure. Just like, how do we help the other person win? When you realize this is not about my ego and who is more right. This is about what is it that I really want and how do I help my partner to win, to get what I want, and what's going to get us closer, and the way that I say it and the way that I show up, that it matters. I'm not entitled to just indulgently throwing out whatever words, unbridled expression, I think is the opposite losing strategy that goes with that.
It's being very intentional, right? Like you're thinking through here, I need to talk to my spouse about something. There's something that I'm not getting, something I want. And how do I be strategic about this? How do I think about what's my goal? What is it that I really want? And he says, if what I'm about to say, is that leading me closer to my goal or further away from my goal? And if it's leading you further away from your goal, rethink what you're about to say and just really have some savvy around it and really come with that love and intention when you're doing that. Winning strategy number 3 is responding with generosity. So this is talking about the listener.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm seeing some of these questions from
Somebody pulling up?
Jonathan and talking about, the dating strategy to keep your partner from getting complacent. A lot of these winning strategies that we're talking about, maybe it doesn't seem like it's directly answering that question, but it does. I was actually thinking about this other question right here. Yeah. In the way that you're relating. So Cherry Reels.
Is this the story about you and me? I think he's referring to.
Oh.
Are you talking about AnnMarie on the dating app? Where would he have heard that?
I don't know.
Did you talk about that on a blog?
Probably.
Jonathan, what are you referring to here? The dating app strategy.
Jerry doesn't want to let all the cat out of the bag, maybe, until we know exactly what you're referring to.
Yeah.
But
tell us what you're referring to there.
The more vague version of just how to keep your partner from being complacent. The answer to that is all these things, all these winning strategies. Are what help you keep having that renewed. I'm cherished. Somebody's treating me with love and savvy and generosity, and we're friends and genuine caring versus taking for granted you're always going to be here.
Yeah. So step 3 is the listener. So if
here.
Yeah, hi, Elena. This is the listener's role right now. So if the speaker...
Oh, it is.
What is it? I remember hearing your wife talk about... Okay, let me bring this up.
I'm hijacking.
I remember hearing your wife talk about it can be beneficial on the YouTube video podcast. Yeah, so what happened was our daughter actually turned her Facebook onto a Facebook.
Not accidentally. She was trying to be funny.
Oh, so our 16-year-old daughter put AnnMarie on the Facebook dating app. You know, the one that Facebook has?
She didn't put that I had 10 kids for some
Yeah,
some
she left
reason.
that out, and it was like some really cute pictures of you. You looked like gorgeous. And all of a sudden,
She put a picture of me pregnant on there, which was interesting.
Yeah, but a lot of them you looked absolutely gorgeous. So, and all these guys started responding and like reaching out to you and saying hi, and like if you guys could talk and stuff like that. And I would go into her app like every day and read these comments from guys like hitting on her. And it caused like a lot of anxiety, but it also helped me understand like, hey, I don't have her in my back pocket. Like I don't own her. She's not obligated to me. She could choose any one of these guys. And some of them were like fit and buff and younger. And
it was amazing.
And it kind of created this, I don't know, this energy,
totally,
this passion.
Totally.
And it was kind of fun because I would joke around about it a lot. And I don't know, just created this really fun, kind of like sexual fun energy. It was really...
Well, it's just in some of these, all these winning strategies are coming away from these frames of obligation. So we do this thing, we get married because of the safety and the beauty of the commitment. But then sometimes we take that commitment and we turn the commitment into obligation. And so when you have something where it's bringing to your awareness, for me also, because as a mom of at the time, like, I don't know if Jerry was completely
I don't know if
if
it was totally clean.
But I don't think we'd had Rosemary yet when my daughter did this. And so for me as a mom of 9 at the time, to be able to go inward and be like, wait, there are still guys that are interested in me. And I don't have to be here. I'm not obligated with this man. It's not that I don't have any other choices. So it brought back into the forefront for both of us this possibility of choice. And that's something really, really important to want to really foster and keep going in your marriage. Obligation is the biggest passion killer ever, where if it's just like, I have to take care of you. If I know he has to take care of me, not he chooses to take care of me, then I don't feel the passion leaves. I don't feel chosen. I just feel like a responsibility. It's where mercy sex kind of comes in. And so thinking about the different things that you can bring into your marriage with the underlying meaning frames inside your marriage and what those are, and using some of these winning strategies that Jerry's talking about, or the ways to be able to disagree appropriately so that you're keeping this cherishing and choosing frame alive. I don't know that I would recommend signing yourself up for a dating app, but the way that it worked out with finding out that, my daughter had done that, there was a lot of heightened passion between the two of us, because he was like, oh my gosh, you don't belong to me, even though you've had 9 kids, which even without really thinking about it, like you kind of everyday life, you get into these assumptions. He knows I'm a loyal person and, obviously have a lot of commitment with this many kids and the business and the way that we work together, that's easy to get that passing ships kind of mindset of like, well, she'll always be here. That he was like courting me. Jerry he was courting me. He was complimenting me more because he was like, I got a little bit of competition.
I was doing some extra push-ups.
Yeah. I mean, so
I was comparing how much money they made.
Anything, that's horrible. Anything that you can do to be getting yourself into the frame of, it is a privilege that someone is willing to share their life with me. I'm not entitled to that, which is these winning strategies of helping each other feel chosen and cherished and bringing the passion, having generosity, having gratitude is what is going to ramp up the passion. So
yeah, so let's break down this one here. This is the listener here. So when the speaker is bringing something to you, the listener, if
so you
you
got to take
if you were
turns. Who's the
if you were
speaker? Who's the listener?
if you respond with generosity, then the idea here is around being a really good listener. And the goal of the listener is to help that speaker move back into harmony. If you're listening with a generous heart, then the points of contention now become points of curiosity. So it's help me understand. And here's the real thing: listening equals understanding. Understanding builds empathy. Empathy creates compassion, and compassion ends combat. So you want to stop any
no more ego of like who
no more tug of war.
Is right. It's just like, how can we create a win-win for both of us? Oh, I see Giselle's here. Giselle's going to be with us at our couples retreat.
Yeah. So is Elena.
In just awesome. A week. We have one spot. Somebody had to back out because of pregnancy.
Yeah, one spot open.
Complications. So just in case anybody needs a last minute crash course.
Okay, number four. If someone's interested, let us know. I'll put the
family
link.
of 12. Wow.
Where's a family of 12?
Came from a family of 12.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
who would do that?
Okay,
winning strategy number 4 is empowering each other. So now it's time for the speaking partner to be of service to the listener. And this is where you help the listener win, where you help them, get this right. So this is where you say, how can I help you give me what I want? How can I help you with the thing I'm requesting? And what this communicates to the listener is it says, I believe you care enough about me to want to please me. I trust that you're good and you're competent. I know you can do this. I'll support you in your efforts, and then I'll treasure the results. So this is just like helping things go right. Helping the listener who you're asking something of to be successful, to win in the thing, right? And if you're communicating that, you do?
Yeah, I do. I really do.
But this is just really helping that person be successful. When someone feels empowered to give you what you want, and that you're going to honor that, you're going to treasure that, you're going to recognize that, then it puts them in the driver's seat, and it's very motivating and inspiring to then step up and do the thing, right? And then the fifth winning strategy is the one we were talking about, and you keep bringing up, and this is cherishing, learning how to really cherish the other.
Elena likes this word too. We've talked about it before.
Yeah, this is, what do you do with what you want after it's been given to you? And I really love this. Failure to take pleasure in the good things in your life dishonors the gifts and accomplishments that deserve appreciation and your right to be happy. It dishonors your right to be happy if you don't actually take pleasure in the good things in your life. And so the steps here are to acknowledge and cherish his or her efforts, and then to demonstrate through your actions an increased desire to be pleasing in return. Right? And I love this quote here. You will not feel like lovers unless you're willing to behave like lovers. And so, like, how do you keep that excitement? How do you keep that cherish? How do you keep that wanting, that choosing? It's you act that way.
Totally.
Right?
And I'm curious too, for everybody listening, like if you have any examples of when you really felt cherished.
Can I share our Taylor Swift ritual? So AnnMarie and I have this song. It's a Taylor Swift song called Lover.
Everybody knows what that song is, dear.
Oh, they do?
Oh, yeah.
And often we'll just turn that song on and we'll just dance and we'll look at each other and we'll sing the words. And you would feel like cheesy teenagers, sort of, like our newlyweds.
Hate it.
Yeah, they all leave the room,
If we
and it's great. And it's just a moment of reconnection, and it's a moment of feeling cherishing each other. And it just creates this really awesome energy. And
definitely.
It's just a great way of us, one little example of something we do to cherish each other.
We had a moment listening to that song where we were in sync. We were in a place where we were cherishing. And so it's kind of like a little SOP to trigger ourselves back into, hey, remember how we cherish each other? Remember how we do that? Like when we did it the first time that we listened to this song. So we're not perfect at all. And we forget to cherish each other all the time. And so some of these super simple little systems can help you to be triggered back into what does that feel like? What are the thoughts that I was thinking? What is the music I was thinking? What is the location? Just so important to invest in cultivating and creating and drawing some of those things out.
Yeah, so that was just a little thought we wanted to share on this week's episode. We would like to get to some questions, have some conversations with you guys, and I saw Jonathan had a question I wanted AnnMarie you to answer.
Okie dokie.
Do you believe that intentional time spent apart to increase fondness or makes the heart grow stronger for each other? This is a very recent conversation we've had.
This is why this is such a good system for us.
Yeah.
To do these calls and remind ourselves. I think you should answer the question, not me, and tell me what you think. Can I pop it back in your court?
Yes, I mean definitely yes, but I don't know. We were talking about this because AnnMarie was planning a trip and she'd be away for like a week, and I didn't want her to go. I thought I would miss her, and so she was kind of saying, "Well, it'll be a great time to be away from each other, create some excitement and passion to come back together." And so we were just having this dialogue. So it's just really, really interesting question. But it can be that, or it could be disconnecting.
Right.
It's what you choose. So it could be connecting or disconnecting. What are you doing with that time apart? Are you fostering a longing, a missing? Mm-hmm. Are you cultivating feelings of, man, my life would be really sad if you weren't here? Mm-hmm. Like one of the things that Jennifer Finlayson Fife teaches is to actually imagine what your life would be like without your spouse if they weren't in your life.
Which being away from each other helps you to imagine that.
And there is no guarantees. So, they could mm-hmm. be gone tomorrow. Like there's nothing that says that's true. And so just putting yourself in a place of like, my life would be greatly, it would be greatly different and less and not as good. And if you weren't part of it. And so that's a little bit of what that happens when you have some time apart, if you allow it to.
Yeah, Ken. We've had some really intense trips apart from each other where we're just being super playful and fun, and because we know we're not going to be physically next to each other, staying connected. I think like texting each other even more, not taking that for granted, texting and being even more playful with each other than in proximity, because we're not taking it for granted that we're right next to each other. But then we've also had different trips, which is what Jerry's point was. This was a Disney trip that we've been talking about. And the amount of time I'm going to have, or if, on the times where he doesn't go away for business very often without me, but on the times where he does, where I know he's working really hard and you're apart from each other, and it's the missing of just that like smaller amount of time that we have during the day to reconnect, where that physical reminder is harder because I'm full on with the kids or he's full on with work. And that's where being apart from each other, obviously isn't as helpful. But to go and have the intention of doing like what Jerry said and thinking about, what would my life be like without this person, or what's a way for us to kind of get out of the everyday and be more playful. We've had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Away from each other.
And we've done it where where it's been a disconnect, where we didn't keep that close connection. So mm-hmm. I think you have to be very intentional about that. Mm-hmm. I love Elena's strategy here to teach Kirk to define the words he uses so that I don't misunderstand what he means. Yeah, because it's a different language. Like what you're saying and what he's hearing might be different. The way you're communicating it, is he really hearing what you're saying? Are you just assuming that he knows what you want? All of those things can come into play with that miscommunication. So,
well, and there's actually some really specific steps again in this New Rules of Marriage.
Oh yeah,
book. Do you have a slide for that?
I did. I wonder why it didn't show up in. Let me see.
Where the feedback wheel.
The feedback wheel.
We maybe didn't go through that one.
Was that in the
all the way? Maybe it wasn't in the same set, but this is especially important to differentiate also that when you're listening to somebody else and then repeating back, to be able to say, the meaning I'm making out of what you're saying is this, instead of just stating like what you just said is this. And that's really hard because we have 1,000 different ways that we can say things and mean things that are something different. And so giving the person the benefit of the doubt to that maybe the meaning that they have with the words that they use could be a little bit different, and help to clarify by saying, the meaning that I'm making out of what you just said specifically is this.
I'm trying to get it. It's not pulling up, so I'll just share the screen here. Hopefully you guys see this screen here, the feedback wheel. But these are like the action steps. And in our marriage, when we follow these, things go really well. When we don't follow these, things don't go so well. But
you get triggered then, and it's a big ego grab.
But the step one here is to ask your partner if they're in a place to listen. Like there's something you want to talk about. There's something you want to request. There's something not going right, something you want differently. You ask them, are you in a place to listen right now? There's something I want to talk to you about right now. If they're not in that right place, it's not a good time to do it because it's not going to be received very well and you're sort of set up to fail. So it's important to ask them if they're in the place to listen. And then before you start talking, remember that your motivation is that you love them. That really helps you stay in the right frame of mind. And then there's these 4 steps here, right? And this is how you
these are the 4
keep yourself safe.
Yeah. So important. So try to help yourself too from a nervous system perspective, not trigger the other person or trigger yourself.
So you would tell your partner what you saw or heard about a particular event. This is very facty, right? Like, hey,
situation.
It's not a broad stroke. It's a very specific thing.
It's just at 4 o'clock, this, and this happened.
What you made up about it. So you would say, this is what I made up about it. Now, what that does is it acknowledges that it's just your perception. It's not how it is. It's just what you're thinking it means, how that makes you feel, like what that thing you made up about it makes you feel, how that made you feel, and then what you would like to have happen differently in the future. And then let go of the outcome. So you're not expecting them to respond a certain way.
That's the hardest
part. You're just giving them the feedback.
Like, now that you understand all of it, you're going to come my way and give it to me. No, it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah. And then you want to let go of that outcome. But that step before that is, and this is what I'd like to have happen differently. So it keeps it more neutral when you're doing it this way. And you're just set up to have much greater chance of success. So questions about that? Any questions about any of those slides that we shared? Anything we talked about with the winning strategies? Any ideas, thoughts, suggestions, questions? Put those in the chat for us right now.
I'll have some of these comments and suggestions from Jonathan about notes.
This one?
Yeah. Some of those cultivating things.
Yeah, James Sexton talks about the power of writing your partner little notes each day before you leave about something that's honest, that you find very noticeable about them, something you admire.
Yeah. Definitely. It's important to be honest about it too. So I'm curious what other systems you guys have of cherishing and loving on. It's hard when you've got the everyday and it feels like we have all these things where we've got to, put out a fire, and this nurturing parts that can be so connecting. And so I think too, they're actually fun, and it's really pleasurable when you let yourself think about how much gratitude you have or how much connection you feel. And I think in a lot of ways we are scared to bring those feelings of love up. It's why when we're faced with the choice between love and fear, a lot of times we go towards the fear. And I think we think if we really sit in the gratitude, we really sit in the cherishing, that then you're facing and you're feeling the feelings of that kind of intensity. You're facing, now I'm going to have the contrast of when that's gone. And can I still hold on to myself in the face of that goes sometimes, and that there's other things that come to the forefront of my life, and the accountability to do what it takes to bring it back into your life, versus being entitled and being like, I don't really want to work too hard to cherish and cultivate these things. It's vulnerable to do it, but it's just easier to go through life. I think especially as women, because we culturally have been trained to be needless and and want list, not only culturally, but I think biologically, you do learn how to put a lot of your own needs and desires aside for the sake of being pregnant and nursing a new baby. But thinking about wanting and desiring, and I do think that there's, I'm sure, men that also struggle with this, but developing that as a strength, actually exercising the ability to want and desire, is something that people don't think of as a skill set that needs to be developed. And I think confronting why it's so uncomfortable is really important to get to the other side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Elena's got a great question here. How do you recall those strategies in the moment of a conflict? So if you're already in a place of resentment, it's much, much more difficult because you've passed the opportunity where it's neutral. So I think one strategy is, don't wait until you're in a place of resentment or you're in a place of anger. You know, again, by coming at the situation from a place of, hey, are you in a place to listen? There's something I want. What is it that I really want? What are the chances of me getting what I want? How can I show up so that I get the thing that I want? How do I help my partner win in the thing that I want? You know, how do I turn this in from, how do I make sure this is an obligation, but it's a request? You know, I'm asking something, I'm not demanding something. And it's not easy. It's hard. I think it's practice. I mean, what it does is it takes, he says in the book, it takes, years to undo years of what you've created, So if you've got a lifetime of using losing strategies, it's probably going to take a lifetime to create winning strategies.
Yeah. We didn't really talk about all the specific losing strategies, but pretty much based on your family of origin, your personality profile, we all have like a nervous system response. We all have these kind of go-to losing strategies where we'll puff ourselves up and we'll go into a self-righteous mode, or we'll go into a martyr mode, or we go aggressive. And so it's being able to kind of go inward and get a sense for when and how we get triggered, and really just mapping yourself, being aware, more self-aware of the best in you and the worst in you, which we're going to talk about in the couples retreat, specific systems to help you be able to see these different thoughts that I'm having. Is this coming from my anxiety, or is this coming from the best in me? When it's coming from anxiety, then that's going to be really what is not the time for you to be talking, or to move into what are some of the higher thoughts that I'm having, to really be able to, discern in the face of like the conflict is here. Or I think also create some different SOPs to help things go right. I think our morning hour that we have, where, you can come at before you're activated and you think of what's my favorite part in this relationship and how can I get more of that, versus, waiting for the resentment. One of the losing strategies is resentful accommodation. It's my favorite losing strategy ever.
Which one?
Resentful accommodation. Oh. I go to it every time. It's just, whoosh, I'm like right there. So for me, I've had to look specifically at, there's a bunch of things that have happened in my history. And I mean, even like generational history, that I can go to and be like, this is the thing that I normally go into. And so what's the reverse engineer system that I can get ahead of this, to, instead of waiting until things don't go how I want, talking about, this is what I really love and what can I do to help this happen first, so that the resentment is not possible. But we all have our different things.
Yeah. So Jonathan's coming up with some great questions here. How much has your religious beliefs played in your relationship? I would say quite a bit, because, one of the things in life is to have a vision of where you're taking your family, where you're going in life. And so us being aligned on the same spiritual goals has certainly allowed us to be united with our kids, and what we believe and how we want to show up around our spirituality, how we want our religious activities to go. And we've had some differences because we both grew up in the same religion, but her family, maybe did the religion a little differently than mine. And we've had to come together and make decisions around some things, not big things, but some things. And I think this is a very important part that should be highly considered when you're dating and courting, and because it's had a profound impact on our marriage, is our religious beliefs and how we want to exercise those beliefs and live those beliefs out. So very much. And in fact, Jonathan asked another question. He asked it in Spanish, maybe in case I didn't want to answer it, but he's asking if we think it's better to wait to get married before having sexual relations. And we certainly think so.
Absolutely.
We believe that, and we teach our kids that, and we think that that's something that should be saved for marriage. And so we have a very Christian view around that, and feel strongly about that. And so, yeah. I mean, not everybody may have that belief, but we certainly do.
Yeah. And I definitely think that there's ways, like however you come to the beauty of monogamy, and just the experience that you get to have when you are choosing one person to fully be known and express your full self. And the religious aspect, I think, not just around maybe the guidelines in how to manage your sexuality or how to love in what, religion teaches. But I think the biggest thing that actually impacts our marriage through our religion is the belief that we are sons and daughters of God, and that this divine worth that we have is not changeable through proving ourselves, that we change the experience that we have. We change the kinds of things that we can learn about when we make mistakes or we don't make mistakes, the context that happens. But knowing that we're children of God is what holds that worth, that it puts us into an ego grab less, that I'm not going to him and trying to get my worth, because I know that I'm created in God's image. And so that worth is solid, and that's not his business to validate that. And he's a human, and he's not always going to, but that's my business to hold who I am and the worth that I have, and to act in a way that is doing things for goodness just because of the experience of it, not to try to be better than or to try to be worse than, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. Question here. Any tips for men on lust when out and about daily with or without your partner?
We do have some
Any tactics you go to? Yeah.
We have some interesting perspectives on this one. You want me to go on?
Yeah, I want to hear what you think.
So, I mean, we do, and we've got 7 boys. So we want to teach our kids about healthy sexuality. And I think the best way that we're going to teach our kids about healthy sexuality is that they're going to trickle down. And we do have lots of conversations with our kids about sexuality, but even more than that, they're going to sense our attitudes about sexuality. And so, having the awareness that I don't own my husband's sexuality and he doesn't own mine, and that I'm directing my sexuality on purpose, is different than understanding that we have a body and that the body responds in a very normal way to attractive people, whether you're a woman or whether you're a man. And so deciding what you want to do with that trigger, with that stimulation, how you want to direct it, how you want to use it for good, how putting it into a realm of a committed relationship can bring safety and goodness, and even, the openness and honesty that we have between what causes arousal is something beautiful between us. But we don't shame each other, and we don't shame our kids for what we say is even something that's sexually relevant, that your kind of monkey brain triggers and notices, hey, this is something that's arousing. But the question is, that trigger is normal and there's nothing wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're a horrible human, but what are you going to do with it to respect yourself and others?
Yeah. Another way to say that and just kind of go along with what you said there is, like if I'm talking to my boys, I'll say to them, yeah, if you see a beautiful girl in a bathing suit at the beach, your body's going to notice that. Like there's nothing you can do about that. It doesn't mean something's wrong. In fact, that means everything's working right that you notice that.
Yeah.
And it's very normal and it's very human. And that means you're functioning on all cylinders, right? Like that's normal. But what are you going to do with it? That's where you then have choice. So how are you going to use that? What are you going to use it for meaning? Are you choosing around your sexuality? Are you being conscious of how you're using it? And are you using it for good? Sexuality can be used for good. It can be used for bad. And just like anything, just like money or whatever. So we just try to encourage our kids to create something beautiful with it, create something wonderful with it. And we feel like the way that you can use your sexuality for goodness and it can be a blessing and a sense of tremendous pleasure and happiness is in a committed relationship with someone that you cherish and love and adore. And so that's all. So I think though there's a lot of dangerous dialogue, especially even in religion and in organized religion, around something going wrong or you're lustful.
The shame.
There's this shaming that happens, and all that does is it puts people in a really bad place. It's like, don't notice a pretty girl, don't notice a pretty girl, don't notice a pretty girl. You're going to notice the pretty girl, right? Like you're putting yourself into a negative place around it all, rather than being like, that's an attractive woman, and oh well,
Yeah, well, and
no big deal.
We use a lot of food analogies with that to help our kids understand in a less emotional kind of way. Like if you see a big, beautiful chocolate cake that's got multiple layers and, thick, sweet icing on the top, of course you're going to want to take a bite. And, we need to have self-control, or I don't even know if self-control is the right word, but we want to choose wisely about how we're going to engage with that chocolate cake. Like we're not going to have a positive relationship with the chocolate cake anymore if we wolf down the entire thing, if we're not like savoring a bite or, understanding a piece of chocolate cake is normal and can be for good. But the real idea behind that question is like, it's ridiculous to think that we should have to feel shame over wanting a piece of that cake. But we can use our higher selves and know, hey, that chocolate cake is not good. It's not for my greater good. And so no, thank you. But we don't want to make ourselves feel really bad that you want a piece of chocolate cake. Of course, that makes sense.
So we have another Swiftie here. And then check this out. My husband put this on. He's a huge Jerry fan and called him a demigod. So I'm going to bring that up.
That's going to go to his head.
I'm going to bring that up. Next time we're having conflict resolution, that's not going my way.
No, I get that. Well, my fans call me a flipping genius.
I don't bring that up.
It's true. It's not.
I don't bring that up.
I can feel him maybe thinking like everybody else
I have thought
everybody else thinks I'm a flipping genius when I'm like, you're a flipping jerk, actually.
And just so you know, we've been married 25 years. We met when you were 17. I was 21. We got married when you were 18. I was 21. And we got married 4 months.
Okay, it is in some of the other videos.
Yeah, we got married 4 months after meeting. Don't recommend that. We hardly knew each other, but we were committed to build a life together, and we wanted a family. We didn't know we wanted 10 kids. I don't think at the moment.
We got a bunch of
we had them one at a time, and here we are 25 years later, and trying every day to live our best life. And the one thing I think that we really do well together and have in common is we're both on a trajectory of growth. We both want to continually progress. We want to develop into the best versions of ourselves. We want to help our kids be successful and do that as well. And so if we've got that in common, we kind of feel like we can work through and navigate through the ups and downs of all of it. And it's been an amazing journey, and just so grateful to be here and be able to share these things with you guys. And so, yeah.
And the question about breaking the ice when angry.
Where's that one at?
Right here at the bottom of KGF, the one we're looking at.
Oh,
I think so. We each have our different ways, and we do take turns breaking the ice when there's a little like heightened conflict or somebody's angry. Jerry's go-to is to be funny. Definitely to, be like trying to hug me or like more physical.
I was wondering how you were going to say that.
But I think my way, and this is the beauty too in the masculine and feminine polarity, which doesn't really have anything to do. What I'm talking about is just different ways of being, opposite ways of being. And I've seen it flip flopped. Doesn't really matter whether like it's an actual boy or an actual girl, but somebody who's more outgoing and more playful by nature, they're gonna manage conflict a little bit better that way. And whereas I'm more introspective, and so I'll intellectualize with him a little bit. I'll be like, come on, Jer, come back. This isn't who we are. Like, I'll try to use words to help him have a different meaning frame in the relationship. And he wants to show me in like a physical, literal, like, I'm solid, I'm right here for you. This is how I cherish you. And so that's great because in this experience that we call life, I get to pressure him around knowing through talking, and he gets to pressure me around knowing through feeling.
Doing.
Yes, that's a better word. Doing. And so we get a chance to be more balanced humans by having the exposure to each other and not just doing everything your own way.
So, this is, I think, talking about sexuality with kids. At what age you start having these conversations? So, I'll let you answer that next. I'll just say one thing, Jamie. You're asking the right question because these are things that a lot of parents shy away from. They avoid these conversations, and you really can't. And one thing that AnnMarie's done so good in our family is she's normal. I did not grow up with any conversations around sex, so it was very awkward for me as a parent to then do that. But you've done so good about making it an everyday normal part of life, about being a human. These conversations are normal. We have them often. And we want our kids to not have anxiety and fear and shame around sexuality, but rather be curious and want to know and be able to talk about it.
But have decency and privacy and delicacy around something private and just special.
And I think one thing that you're also really good at is whatever age our kids are, when they start asking questions or when they start getting old enough to want to know, you do a really good job of giving them just enough for what's appropriate for their age in a way that they can understand it. Mm-hmm. Because it's also about timing and mm-hmm. age appropriate and things like that. So, and then as they get older, the conversations become a lot more directed, a little more specific.
Yeah. So the answer to that, I think it does already start as soon as they're born, or even I had this conversation with my daughter, my 3-year-old even, is not fully understanding modesty. And so helping her to understand, not to touch herself in private areas, especially when we're in a public place. And so just redirecting not to, oh, that's icky, or, ooh, don't touch that. One of our kids got that comment from a friend or something, and immediately was like, no, those are your special parts. Those are not disgusting. That's part of your body. That's a beautiful part of you, but it's so special that we keep it private. And so they're already starting to put these connotations together that this is something that is for private places. This is for special, not I have shame around this. This isn't something that can be beautiful. This is something I should keep hidden, but still helping them to know this is something that has to be discussed in an appropriate way, but without the negativity behind it. And as parents, we have a lot of fear around our sexuality versus, I think that's been something that's been huge in our marriage, is not being afraid of our sexuality and the ways that your body just does respond to so many different kind of stimuli, and especially with the media that we have all around us, to that, to then be able to understand differently of like, this is still a beautiful thing. Let's just direct it in a different way, in a really monogamous,
intentional.
Yeah, intentional. How do we use it not in the way of having it be a grab or
Indulgent.
a transaction or an indulgent, but an actual intentional communication method that's fun. And there's so much mundane in life that we talk to our teens, and like, I think by the time they're between 8 and 12 is when they're understanding the full logistics of what sexuality is, again, depending on what they're asking, that I am very specific to just tell them little bits until they keep asking, where I'm like, I've got no wiggle room. I don't think that they're feeling like I'm trying to avoid the question because I'm uncomfortable. I, try to just make sure it's what they're actually ready for.
So Jamie, a great course that we got was teaching your kids about sexuality with so Jennifer Finlayson Fife has a
she's
course.
Our favorite, guys.
She has a course on teaching your kids about sex. That's really, really good. So you definitely check that out if that's something that is important to you.
Yeah, we never know where these.
I didn't think we were going to be talking
about. Yeah, where these lives go to. It is great.
I
love it that way. Any questions?
Do you have these conversations growing up, or how did you formulate these age-specific strategies? Yeah, so that course will really help you because she talks a lot about how to have these conversations.
I did have the conversations growing up.
Yeah, you had a very open family.
My parents had a much more neutral idea around sexuality, even though I did grow up. And there was, probably some things that, like, it is that it's meant to be that between parent and child, it's kind of awkward, I think, biologically, so that there's not sexual things happening between parent and child. So I think it's normal that this is a hard thing, but overall, my mom was really comfortable, I think, with discussing sexuality with us, which my mom was on the last call. So I better be careful. But we did have to learn with trial and error. And in all honesty, I was having a conversation with my 22-year-old at the same time with my 16-year-old. They were getting ready to go and see a movie. There was a movie that had a scene in it that was not my favorite, but the rest of the movie had some really good meanings in it. And so I had an older married brother with, 15-year-old brother. And we were sitting out on the porch in Montana, and I was talking to my 15-year-old about how I wanted him to already start thinking about how he was going to direct his sexuality and just make these emerging feelings come out of him be a beautiful experience, and the different ways he could look at it and frame it, and the way that this sexuality was being portrayed in the movie, and ask him, do you think that that is something that is actually, for good, or would be the kind of way that you'd want to be expressing your sexuality? And, it's normal to have these responses and for your body to be a certain way, but how do you want to use it? And in talking about how that was normal, my 22-year-old looked at me and was like, wow, Mom, that is the most amazing way that I've ever heard you describe sexuality. And why didn't you tell me that when I was 15?
He was like 22.
He's 22.
Married already.
Already married. And I'm like, sorry, bud. Yeah. That's like number one talking with number five. Yeah. And so this is one of the beautiful things about us being able to do a call like this, because we have gotten to practice a whole bunch of times and make all sorts of mistakes.
The first 5 will need a lot of therapy. The last 5.
Yeah, but what was so beautiful is that there really still was a real healing experience that I could tell was still blessing my oldest son, still blessing his marriage, blessing his sense of self in the face of being a sexual human, and what that means, and how to navigate that, and how to use his sexuality as a blessing versus something that controls him or divides him in some of his different objectives in his life. And so it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect.
And I would say, Giselle, with your question here about, these conversations can be very awkward just because we don't have the vernacular. We don't, we weren't taught how to do these things well. And it's like anything. I think if this is an area where there's a deficit, definitely get education around this, learn what you can, take courses, because it's not something that you want to just ignore, because if you ignore this, then they're going to learn about it through their peers and at school, and probably get a lot of misinformation. There's already a lot of pressure and misinformation just naturally through social media and everything else. So you're already up against a huge battle just by itself as a parent with kids today. And so we just want to be as proactive as we can around these things. Now they may still choose differently. They may still not take what we say or listen to advice from others, whatever. But at least we can sleep at night knowing that we showed up as best we could around these areas.
Or we gave them the best perspective of what has been a blessing for us, what has worked for us. So they are going to have to choose how they want to use their sexuality. And the world is presenting, in our opinion, a very transactional, kind of indulgent perspective on a whole, around sex being a lot about what you get, not, the real intimacy that comes with the emotional and the physical really being known. And so you've got to work really hard to give your kids a vision for something that is different than what the world is presenting. And in some ways, some of the media, and I don't think that we are, as parents, as like, at least not anymore with the younger kids. I think with my older ones, something would come up on the screen and I would be like, no. And, now I feel like some of the context, obviously I don't want them still seeing anything that their immature minds are not ready to be able to handle, but having a little bit of context to be like, I want to dress modestly, talking with my daughters. I want to, because I want to save that special something for somebody else. I don't need the attention. I can hold on to my worth despite what kind of figure I have. And
I remember having a conversation. You were there with our adult boys. Might have been a teen there too, but we were talking about sex, and I said to them, when you get married, do you want to know the secret to a really good sex life? And they're like, okay, what?
Yeah, they're probably like, not from you, Dad.
And
I'm sure they were joking and probably saying that. Dad's like, I'm going to give it to you anyway.
And I said, make it all about her experience in sex, and you'll have an amazing sex life. And they were kind of like, well, wait, what? And so then we were able to have just this beautiful, awesome conversation with our adult boys around these ideas. And they were open, they were wanting to learn, and it wasn't this, dirty word. It was just very normal. And so those are those moments that can be really special around this. And so that's what we're looking for to do.
For sure.
Great comment here. You're exactly right. They'll learn it somewhere. It's best they learn from someone who's looking out for their best interest. Yeah, totally. And so Ralph is the one that said, I'm a demigod. Yeah.
Thanks for putting that in his head. I think he's a demigod too.
I'm not. Ralph, honestly, if I was half as cool as you thought I was, I'd be doing pretty good.
Oh my gosh, no. He is amazing. But all these things are works in progress. It's all practice based. And sometimes, like in light, we were talking today about conflict. But whether it's getting through and sitting in these really hard nervous system responses, when you understand that there's a physiological thing, your nervous system has perceived some sort of threat, and it's just managing yourself, holding on to yourself in the face of these triggers. And so whether it's a trigger around this threat of, what your worth is, or somebody who's criticizing you and you have to hold on to yourself, or you have to look at yourself in the face of criticism, or whether it's an uncomfortable conversation about something as vulnerable as sexuality with your kids, the point is that you stay in the game and that you recognize nothing's going wrong while this anxiety is bubbling through you, and you kind of practice letting it sit there. That I was a lot more nervous with my older kids to talk about that, or for sure earlier on in our marriage, or we still have that happen where we trigger each other even really recently, which is why we're like, let's remind ourselves on this call about the proper way to disagree appropriately when you get out of balance and you've got too many things that are going on and that self-care isn't there and your nervous system is just, you're more tired, you're not eating as well, you haven't exercised, and so your nervous system is just already kind of like that close. You have hormonal shifts and, woman's cycle. And so you've got to be able to, keep practicing in all these different scenarios where you're not going to be always having everything all pulled together and responding in a perfect way. And that's the process of learning these things and getting a chance to do it over and over again. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just sit in that anxiety and go for it again.
So here's the truth. Half of your demigod status can be attributed to the beautiful partner next to you.
Oh,
more than all of it, not half of it.
Yeah. Super sweet.
Well, you guys are really amazing.
Oh, I love that quote too. The neck.
The man is the head in the relationship, but the woman is the neck.
Best movie. Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yeah.
It's true. It's a partnership. It really is. And we grow each other up in our really different ways of being. And the different ways are what cause us anxiety. But then when you can settle down into that anxiety, you become a little bit more like the other one. And you have different ways of being that you end up becoming a more whole human because you've taken a little bit from Jerry's totally my opposite in so many ways. So at first it's like my ego's like, no, this is the only right way of doing things. And then when I can sit in and practice doing it a little bit differently, I realize, no, there's some goodness in his way of being. And I want to merge and I want to change a little bit. And that's why relationships are what David Schnarch says is the world's best growing people machines.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. One of our mentors, if you guys want to look any of these guys up, they've got lots of valuable insights here.
Well, guys, this has been an amazing night and wonderful to connect with you guys and share some ideas and thoughts.
Great conversation.
Yeah. After this video ends on the live, if you have other questions, please put those in the comments. We'll try to get to those. And for some of you that are coming next week to Puerto Rico, we'll see you at the couples retreat we're doing, and we're going to continue to do these. And so, as you think of things and have questions, come on the show and
we're also going to have some guests. And
we have
reach
some
out
guests coming up.
Special guests to be able to talk to some other couples, especially is what we're going to try to reach out to, who are also trying to merge business and family and switch it up in between, stay-at-home dad, stay-at-home mom, mom entrepreneur, dad stays at home, like both intertwining. So
that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But we sure love you guys, and we're excited to see you guys soon and spend time with you. And
fast trackers here.
And good. And we'll be in 3 weeks. We'll be in Montana for the summer, so we're pretty excited about that. 3-4 weeks we'll be in Montana.
Which means we are going to miss. We're going to miss
one of the nights.
Yes,
while we're flying.
Yes, so we'll keep you guys posted about that while we're
in
the air. So
all right, appreciate you guys. We'll see you again.
Good night.